FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz, and today is 3/25/20. Well, coronavirus continues on, but I think if you're like me, you're getting really tired of it. And I know exactly one person that has coronavirus. How many do you know? Why don't you let us know? Love to get your thoughts on the coronavirus and whether we're going over the top on it. The email address is kl@kerrylutz.com. kl@kerrylutz.com. Well, when we're looking at this, we should always talk to trained medical professionals. Somebody on YouTube asked me the other day where I got my degree in epidemiology, and it might come as a shock to you, but I don't have one. And I responded simply to him, the same place you got yours. Well, somebody might not be have a degree in epidemiology, but she is a doctor, treats a lot of people at the cutting edge of medicine and how you pay for it. Dr. Elaina George is with us. And Dr. George, it's great to have you back. So what do we make of the whole coronavirus panic?
Well, thank you, Kerry, for having me back on. I've been watching this pretty closely as well, since I'm on the front line. You know what? The thing that strikes me about it is the partial coverage. That I just keep hearing about new diagnoses, but there's never coverage about how many people recover. And more people are recovering than people that are dying. And they don't give you the actual raw numbers so that you can compare. What's it like in terms of mortality compared to the common flu? And the flu kills more people than the coronavirus. Or COVID-19, I should say. So I think we've gotten a lot of hysteria, a lot of fear that's been perpetrated by the media. And I think things have happened according to that script. But you're looking at it as a physician and, you know, keeping your hat on in terms of, you know, apples and oranges. This is not as lethal as they would want us to believe. I don't know if it's really necessary for everybody to be quarantined the way they are, but I think there's a bright spot. I think it's bringing us together. I think people have become a lot more self-sufficient and less dependent on the government in terms of having a plan. And I think that's a good thing, if nothing else.
Yes, people are coming together. I've noticed that around my area here in Florida. But for how long, we'll see. It just seems to me that this is so much manipulation. Look, we know for a fact, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not a doctor, don't have a medical degree, don't have any medical training, and no degree in epidemiology. But the fact is, Dr. George, that viruses can't put up with heat and humidity for the most part. And that's why we see things like the flu virus abate and kind of go into dormancy for spring and summer because humidity goes up, temperature goes up. Why is COVID-19 one of the few viruses, I know there are some around, that doesn't seem to care about the temperature, even though the published literature from the Chinese shows that it does?
Well, I'm of the mindset that the warm temperature will start to attenuate the virus. It's just what we're being told when you get inundated with partial information. And, you know, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a realist, and I look at all data. But it seems to me, especially the way the Congress has rolled out this care package for the country, that this has become a political football. And it's in the interest of the people who want to get back into power to make it as bad as they can make it, to foist the blame on the current administration without any proof. I mean, no one seems to want to go back in time to see what it was like with the H1N1 and swine flu and Ebola. I mean, there was nothing like this in terms of the media onslaught. And personally, I think the administration is doing a good job with limited supplies and trying to create a system that actually works. and not having one voice instead of people having alternate views, which serve the people who are out of power right now. I think you need to follow the money and see who stands to gain. That's always been the case. And I find that to be the case right now as well.
Yeah. Well, it seems like there are people who are never letting a crisis go to waste, right? Yeah. And these people are, look at without getting into the whole stimulus bill, and you can debate that and all that, but they wanted to make it this social welfare bill that would change America make it in the image of AOC and the crazy leftists. So we'll see what happens there. But getting back to the medical aspects of this, so obviously, if you're in a threatened class, a vulnerable class, you need to take precautions. But does that mean that the whole rest of society has to take precautions? Because this, according to what I read, so the Diamond Princess, that was the boat where people were trapped on it for weeks. 20% of the people came down with it. That means that 80% are immune because they had constant total exposure to the virus and didn't come down with it. So of that, 1% of the people died, probably because they didn't have, ventilators, respirators, and probably because their ability to get the drugs that we now know are effective or have a very good idea that are effective, they couldn't get it. So is it the responsibility of 90 or 80% of society to protect the 20 who might get it? That's the real issue to me. I think we have some obligation, but does that mean we have to stop life as we know it?
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Lumina Gold, ticker symbol LUM on the Toronto Venture and LMGDF on the OTC, is yet another of legendary mining investor Ross Beaty's Lumina Group. It's advancing the largest primary gold deposit in Ecuador. The resource is estimated to contain 16.7 million ounces of gold and 2.2 billion pounds of copper. At just $7 US per ounce gold equivalent, it trades at an incredible 13% of its net present value. More good news is on the way with an updated PEA study expected in Q2 of 2020. It has unparalleled infrastructure. There's grid power to camp with plentiful, inexpensive hydropower available. It's close to 2 ports and is just 8 kilometers from a paved highway. Water is plentiful. It's at low elevation, and the closest community, which is very supportive of Lumina's effort, is just a 7-kilometer ride. With all this going for it, it's likely to follow the typical Ross Beaty formula, which means big returns to shareholders. Find out more and sign up for notifications at luminagold.com. That's Lumina, Lumina gold.com.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
I think it's an excellent question, and I think the answer for me is no. I mean, I think you need to practice good hygiene, and I think people are doing a lot of that, which is also a good thing. But I agree with you. And if you look at the states that are doing it, those are, I'm sorry, but politics and medicine seem to be attached at this point. These are Democratic-run governors and states that are doing the medical martial law more than anybody else. And you made a very important statement. 1% of people have passed due to this virus. That's worldwide. It's not 5% or 3%, what WHO said at the beginning. And that's the thing that started the whole ball rolling. They didn't really give proper demographic information about how many people died from the virus. And I think that's where the whole ball started rolling downhill. And when you look at the numbers, even the more people you test, the actual number of people dying is starting to drop. So this is no more lethal than the flu. It is more contagious, that's true. But if you take care of yourself, and I'm a big fan of having your system work properly, taking supplements, making sure you're nutritionally sound, making sure that you do the normal things that you do to boost your immune response, sleep, exercise, good hand hygiene, taking supplements like vitamin D, vitamin C, selenium, zinc, magnesium. These are things that are elderberry syrup. These are things that are going to help your system fight off infection. So no one talks about that. They're always talking about some medication coming down the pipe. And again, my attitude is who stands to gain? If chloroquine, for example, has been present or available for years to treat malaria, I'm not sure I understand why they're poo-pooing it when there are actual studies from the NIH, by the way, in 2005 that said that chloroquine was sensitive or would be effective against coronavirus. And now it's like it doesn't exist. So I'm watching all players in this, and I'm going to take care of my patients and myself. And people need to do your due diligence, have a plan, and really, I think, take a step back from all the fear that's being foisted on you.
Yeah, and there really are people panicking over it. I mean, I'm a little bit more cynical about the government and that they're here to help me and the ability to actually get things done. I'm a little more skeptical, but evidently, it doesn't take much. You know what this reminds me of? Orson Welles' War of the Worlds. They started this, radio play, basically. It started out by saying, this is dramatic fiction. It's not real. It's not happening. And all the people listened to it and still believed it. And from that, I believe the media learned that they could do anything to people and they would believe it, and they could create these panics and make people do things that they wouldn't ordinarily do and be compliant and all of this, I
agree.
Yeah. So
it is kind of shocking that people would just acquiesce and just not question and stay in their homes. And I mean, the whole economy it's not grinding to a halt, but I would think that would be the goal of this, is to make chaos so that you can, find a solution. And that solution is change of power, it seems to me, in my opinion. But, we all have a role to play. One is to take care of yourself, not feed into the fear, be logical about it, and protect yourself. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I think this is going to end. My impression is if the chloroquine is used in New York and it actually works the way studies suggest that it will, that would be the beginning of the end of this.
Yeah, well, that's what they're scared of. If there's a drug that actually cures it, and it appears by all appearances, chloroquine and other quinine-based drugs. I mean, that's the funniest thing, because when the Army was there in World War II, they would take quinine pills, and at least that's what they called them. Quinine is in, I think it's tonic water. I wonder what the effect of drinking tonic water on COVID-19 is. Nobody has said this.
No, they haven't. It's an interesting concept, though. But when you look at epidemiology on this, and Africa seems to have a lower number of cases, and they're constantly being treated for malaria with quinine drugs. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. That
makes you think.
That's why the guy who came up with using it to treat coronavirus, he came up with it because he looked at the map and said, there's not much going on in Africa. I wonder if it has something to do with the fact that malaria is prevalent there and that the entire population is taking quinine-based drugs to combat it. And my understanding with malaria is once you get it, it never really goes away, but it goes into like dormancy until you get older, and then when you're at your time, it kind of comes and gets you. Because I knew somebody that had it in World War II and treated effectively and never had another outbreak of it. But man, you look at it and the panic, it reminds me there was a sign in the 60s, and I've said this before on the show. If you're listening to me out there and I'm repeating myself, it's by design. But there was a sign from the 60s that said, don't just stand there, panic. Right? And that's what people are doing here. And it's complete and total madness. I mean, what about toilet paper? The only time toilet paper is important is when you can't get it, right? Otherwise, it's very insignificant.
Usually there's other things that people panic by. It was kind of interesting to see that one. But I mean, I'm living here in Georgia. It's not really that mentality of road warrior. It's not like that down here. No. People are obviously staying home when they don't have to. If they're able to work from home, they are. But people are still going to get things to eat. They're still shopping. It's not the same mentality here that I see. And the governor is pretty reasonable. He's not asking people to, I don't care what it is, close your doors. It's if you think that you're in the category and you feel like you're vulnerable, then you should stay home.
Which is like total logic, right? Total logic. And yet getting him to do it. And it's so idiotic. I mean, people have to panic. So when you go through the supermarket now and you look at the stuff they've taken, it's hand sanitizer, it's tissues, paper towels, and eggs, and maybe some milk. But they restock that. But you can't seem to lay your hands on toilet paper. You know that in 2-3 weeks, you're going to be looking at your pantry and saying, what the heck did I buy all this toilet paper for? It's going to take me a year to use it, right?
Yeah, it's probably true. But you know what? If, God forbid, something else happens and actually you're prepared. Now you're ready. And it won't be one of these things happening the next round. God forbid we ever have one.
Mm-hmm. That's just, it's stupefying. And, one thing I did learn is so this is not a real serious disaster in terms of a hurricane or natural disaster, earthquake. And the plans that I had in place, food, other items, really held up much better here than when you have a hurricane and you have to evacuate. So that, to me, the fact that the plan worked tells me that that this really isn't so bad. You're able to get food, you're able to get gas. Price of gas is getting cheaper while you're pumping it into your car. But all of these things, and yet we've got this mass panic, and it shut down the world economy. Now the Democrats don't want to do anything about it. They want you to suffer. And I don't, like I say, I'm no big proponent of bailouts. And I think these bailouts should come with a lot of strings for these big companies that were basically buying back their shares like Boeing, rather than managing their company and making safe, reliable products. They were so busy lining their own pockets, they lost sight of the purpose of the company. So, but on the other hand, small businesses have been absolutely decimated by this. And the company my daughter works for, it was growing like leaps and bounds, a PR company, and for travel, no less. And now the company is literally out of business. They will be closing their doors probably within 2 weeks if something doesn't happen come down from Washington. So, and they created this, and I just wonder if I hate conspiracy theories, but the World Health Organization, we know that the guy that runs it is a no good corruptocrat, totally evil. And I wonder what the CDC's motivations are, because like you said, they had the 2005 study, and they could have approved this really quickly. It doesn't have many side effects as long as you don't overdose on the quinine-based drugs. What's the risk? And yet they're not doing it because they're not ready for this crisis to be over yet.
And not until you extract as much as you can from it. I mean, it's really blatant. It's naked, because the congressman from Maryland, or I forget his name, Clyburn. I mean, he's the one who's saying that, this is our chance to get everything we want. He's paraphrasing, but it's basically they're going to try to hold the country hostage to get these things passed, which have nothing to do with caring for people and helping people. People are dying. People are losing their jobs. They want a big welfare state, and I'm pretty sure they want single payer to come along with it. And the sad fact is, it's the government response that's been bad. CDC didn't do very much. The NIH, not very much. And it's really the public-private partnership where the government is partnered with private industry to get the masks out, to get ventilators made, to get things to people quickly. It's not government. And at least the government is smart enough to have partnered with private companies. That's the truth if people really want to take a step back.
Yeah, that is the truth.
Even New York State, they didn't buy ventilators because they wanted to do other things with their money. Yeah. That's the government. That's your local government. It's not president's fault in this, but you understand how the government works now. It's not really for us. It doesn't do the things it's supposed to do. You have to handle your own business, and knowledge is power. And I think if people get out their partisan, out of their partisan stools and take a look at what's really going on, I think everybody should be outraged. I don't care if you're left, right, center. This is a travesty.
Yeah, it totally is. And I just can't understand how shutting down the world economy for what may be, 20, 30,000 deaths. I mean, that's horrible, all that. But maybe those people would have died of the flu anyway. You don't know, right?
No,
and they were
50,000
susceptible.
people died last year of the flu in our country. I mean, so it makes it sound like this is the worst death rate since, the Black Death. That's not what's going on. And unfortunately, it's the same cohort of people with underlying medical conditions, poor immune systems, senior citizens, the most vulnerable in any disease that's going on. But that's, again, You're only getting how many new cases, not how many people recovered. And if you really think about this, there's so many people who have it and didn't know. So you're not even counting those people in this number.
Of course.
Of course. So it has to be lower than what they're saying.
Way, way lower. I mean, I think when the stats come in, everything is shown. It's going to show that the mortality rate's probably pretty close to the flu, maybe a little bit higher. But like you said, the contagious nature of the virus, that's really its power. But still, 80% of the population is immune, and what they found is that in ordinary cities, as the virus spreads and people reduce their interactions, the 3% of the population maybe is getting affected by it. And of those people, 80%, 89%, somewhere around there, depending who you listen to, are going to get better on their own. That 11% are going to need some type of medical treatment. We don't know what. But man, imagine if they threw a pandemic and nobody showed up, right?
Exactly. I mean, this is a study in how corrupt the system is technically. I read an article about how hospitals are now buying chloroquine and hoarding it, essentially.
Yeah, for the doctors and the staff.
Well, I mean, how many people can they save or serve in their hospital system, right? So for you to double your buying capacity, how many patients are you really going to help? Isn't it more logical to have it be available in the pharmacy so that people who are mildly ill can go to their doctor, get a prescription so they're not in the hospital? Wouldn't that make a lot more sense? Right? You don't want people to be at death's door before they start getting treated. So, I mean, this whole system is it's messed up. But everybody who stands to gain has a stakeholder in this, and they're positioning themselves. But I really like the fact that they're going to go after people in companies that are hoarding supplies. That made sense to me. Cut that off immediately so that stops, Oh,
here we go. Tonic water contains no more than 83 milligrams of quinine per liter, a much lower concentration than the 500 to 1,000 milligrams in the therapeutic dose of quinine tablets. So you could conceivably distill it down and take like 5 bottles and 5-liter bottles, evaporate them or whatever. Then you've got 400. So you need 6 bottles and you can treat yourself, right? I mean, assuming that heat doesn't have an effect on quinine, which I tend to doubt it does, because those things sit in the trucks, 100-degree weather. I'm not advising you to go do it. I'm just saying that you encounter quinine if you're a drinker and you like mixed drinks. You encounter quinine all the time, and really, you can actually find quinine pills, generic. I'm looking 300 milligrams for $21. And I don't even know that you need I don't even think you need a prescription for this, doctor, what they've got, the quinine pills. So
I don't know about those. I haven't seen that. But if it is by prescription technically.
Yeah. But
I've never heard of that, whatever your website you're on.
Quinnidine, it's called. And it's a generic. maybe you do need a prescription. I'm not. It's an online pharmacy, so you need a script, but you can get these things. And I'm not going to go out and buy them, but it's called Quinnidine sulfate because it's basically quinine that is the active ingredient in all this stuff, and they've supercharged it and all that. But these are insane times. You need to stay healthy and, like you said, build up your immune system. There's a lot of foods and supplements that'll do that very thing. Anyway, we got to get going. Just tell us, Dr. George, where is the best place to find you these days on the web?
You can go to my website, drelainageorge.com, DRELAINA, George like the man's name. My blogs are on there. I haven't written any in a while, but I do post my radio show, my podcast on there. And you can also get the podcast on Liberty Talk FM, and you can go to iTunes and look up Dr. Elaina George, and now it's called Living in the Solution. So there are two podcasts, Medicine on Call and Living in the Solution. And I did a show actually on some of the natural approaches to treating coronavirus, and people might find that interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, we'll have a link to your site in the show notes as always. Appreciate you coming on. Questions for Dr. George or myself? Where do you think the coronavirus is heading? My guess is in 6 weeks, it'll be a faint memory, because what we're seeing we didn't even have a chance to talk about it, Dr. George, is in Italy, cases have peaked. In China, they've peaked. In Korea. Yeah. So it runs a 10-week cycle, and then it peaks, and then it goes down. It's a bell curve, just like anything else in life. So let's hope for the best. We'll talk to you again real soon. Thanks so much for coming on.
My pleasure, and God bless everybody.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.